Hello everyone. Oh, camera's a little. How's everyone doing? Happy July 6th, Wednesday. How is everybody? I see Sharky's in chat, and I see Edgar Perez, and I see Farm Mouse. Seems wrong. Hello. I'm a little warm. A little. My hair is all. I just got out of the shower like half an hour ago or something like that, so my hair hasn't had time to poof out yet. It'll do that by the next day or two. Sorry, I'm mucking with the camera. And look at the look behind me here. The place looks different. We got bookcases where there were not previously bookcases. Yeah, I'm sorry that I kind of completely missed last week's streams. I think it's the first time that I've just unscheduled missed streams, but it's been a crazy year. Few weeks. We've been very, very busy packing up the house and getting it presentable for, we had real estate listing photos come through 2 days ago. No, yesterday? Yesterday. Very presentery, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we had the photos taken yesterday, and our house isn't on the market yet, but it will be by the 11th. So we've just got to keep it clean between now and then. So our garage right now is just stuffed full of boxes of our stuff. Many of our things are packed away. Anyone could see themselves living there, except a creature of gargantuan size, perhaps. I don't know. There's a colossal red dragon in the other. No, it's been packed away. Of course, it's been packed away. I couldn't leave out a dragon. Might scare people away from the place. Look at how long my hair is. In the back, it goes down to like the middle of my back. This guy was upstairs in a different room for the pictures. We actually left him out. I mean, they're lost, yeah, right? Sadly, not everyone is as geeky as us. For some reason. I don't know how people go through their lives like that, but they do. Yeah, so it's been busy. Lots and lots of packing and moving and packing and moving. And getting out of the house so that cleaners can come through. We had a professional cleaner clean the place. How weird is that? And getting out of the house so that the pictures can come through twice. Because we had just regular photos, and then like there'll be like a 3D map of our place. You know, so you can kind of like Google Earth. You'll be able to click through our house and look around room to room. Yeah, Puppy has been very confused. He hasn't been thrilled about all the changes, it seems like. But yesterday and today, like after the photographers were done, and today we relaxed a little bit, and Puppy, I think, was very relieved for that. He slept much of yesterday evening. You think everyone could geek out about something? It's just some things like sports they don't call geeking out. I don't know. I kind of think there are some people out there that just don't geek out about anything at all. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone's got something. But it seems to me like there are certain people that just kind of do the routine. Maybe that's me being pessimistic, though. Yeah. So that's what I've been up to. Also, the day before yesterday was my birthday, which was spent packing. We went out for a little bit. We visited friends a little bit in the morning while the cleaner was here, because the cleaner was actually in our house on my birthday. So we went out and visited friends and had some pho and went to a hobby shop, though I didn't actually pick anything up while I was there, at least not for me. But I should have. I should have picked something I didn't need. But I didn't. And then, yeah, in 3 days, we're going to go out to Chilliwack and hang out with some people and do some birthday-ish things. It'd be cool if I could embed a link to my YouTube channel on the tour. I doubt it's going to get that much traffic anyways, the virtual tour, and people are definitely not going to be looking to pick up new streaming services while they're looking through it. Like a secret QR code. That would be a very odd way to pick up new viewers. Hey, I saw your link on the real estate listing virtual tour. Oh boy. So, it's been like 2 weeks since we did anything. Not quite, a week and a half. We're on chapter 5 of Magician's Gambit. And our plucky band of adventuring heroes, people advertising weirder places, our plucky band of adventuring heroes have been forced to enter the haunted land of Maragor, defying all expectations in doing so. Because as we were all perfectly aware, they were not going to go into Maragor, because Maragor is haunted. Why would they go there? Even though the part that we're in, the part of the book, is titled Maragor, they were very clear. We're not going there. No one is going to Maragor. But they did. They ended up being forced to go to Maragor, which really surprised me, and I've read this book repeatedly. But yeah, I was caught off guard. How about that? Oh, my eyes look really red, don't they? It's just 'cause, again, just had a shower and I guess they're red from that for some reason. I need to get on getting someone to make some custom emoji for the chat. Because, we can do that now. So I need to, I don't know, commission someone to do that. Talk to a friend of mine, see what they think. Now that we're a little less crazy busy, a little, we still have lots to do. We have to figure out, we should, I think we're going to hire movers and rent a storage space before the 11th, because that's when the house goes on the market, and then especially before the 16th and 17th, because that's when our agent is going to hold an open house here. So we've still got a bit to do. We need an angst button. Yeah, it needs to be like an icon that's like a red button and maybe with like the word angst above, but you can only fit so much in an emoji, right? They're so small. So I don't know whether how much detail you can get on that. I'll have to start compiling a list of emoji we need to have. We've got to have a barred button, or maybe, yeah, I think a barred button. We need to have an angst button, teen angst. Maybe just angst. Make it a little more general purpose. Yeah, there's a few things we could do. I want to have an eagles are not forks emoji. But again, I think that depends on how much detail you can fit in the space. So, it's still relatively early. Only been talking for 10 minutes or so, but I think it's probably about time to get started on reading, because I am also still quite tired. So, I don't think there is animated emoji options. I don't think so. Once we've got some emoji on here, you can do like custom. You can, when I say custom, what I mean is like you can decide that you're going to spend some points and then you can like customize them by like modifying them. Like I got this high emoji here, which looks like that, which just is a default. And then you can like be like, I'm gonna spend some points. I'm gonna spend 900 points, and I'm gonna customize that by sticking some sunglasses on it or flipping it upside down. And then you go, bam, upside down high. I don't know why you want to have an upside down emoji, but you can. So there's things like that, but no, I don't think there's really much in the or anything in regards to being animated. You can highlight your messages and things like that. Yeah, what are all the custom options? There aren't many. You can put it into grayscale, you can flip it, you can put sunglasses, you can squish it, or you can put like sort of a little like hand on it as if it were thinking. Like where it's like, So once we, because of course we're going to have to get a Binibik emoji. So once we've got there, you can put some shades on Binibik. Yeah. All right, I'm going to read this book. Everybody ready? In my copy, we are on page 52. Partway through page 52. About halfway. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Wow, 5. This is going to make me all blurry again. It's not worth it. All right. You're also on 52. Right. Ours somewhat match up. Despite having different maps and things, the chapters match up. Okay. So, where we ended chapter 4 was everyone holding hands in a circle while Aunt Pole put their minds to sleep so that they would not be horribly scarred by things they might see within the borders of Maragor. Mr. Wolf was outside the circle and Aunt Pole was inside the circle. So, where we left off, it was his panic faded and he felt a strange, peaceful lassitude. His eyes grew heavy and the sound of the wailing grew fainter. Then, enfolded in a comforting warmth, he fell almost at once into a profound slumber. So, starting chapter 5. Garion was not exactly sure when it was that his mind shook off Aunt Pole's soft compulsion to sink deeper and deeper into protective unawareness. It's not great, is it? It could not have been long. Falteringly, like someone rising slowly from the depths, he swam back up out of sleep to find himself moving stiffly, even woodenly, toward the horses with the others. When he glanced at them, he saw that their faces were blank, uncomprehending. He seemed to hear Aunt Pole's whispered command to sleep, 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 but it somehow lacked the power necessary to compel him to obey. There was, to his consciousness, however, a subtle difference. Although his mind was awake, his emotions seemed not to be. He found himself looking at things with a calm, lucid detachment, uncluttered by those feelings which so often churned his thoughts into turmoil. He knew that in all probability he should tell Aunt Pole that he was not asleep, but for some obscure reason he chose not to. That seems to be pretty par for the course for Garion. That should go on them bingo cards. Should tell Aunt Pole or Mr. Wolf about X, but doesn't. Sharky say, usually it seems the trope is that the place purported to be haunted is actually just a legend, or ruse, like Scooby-Doo villain in a mask. So it's always interesting to me when the place actually is haunted. Yeah, I feel like I was initially inclined to doubt that Maragor was haunted until Mr. Wolf and Aunt Pole were taking it seriously. And then it was like, oh, maybe there is something going on there. I don't know if you remember, but in Pawn of Prophecy, back when Mr. Wolf was still the storyteller, he told a ghost story about Maragor, back at Faldor's farm, where some people went into Maragor chasing gold, and then one by one they got picked off, and then the last one saw the ghosts, and he ran screaming off a cliff or something like that. And then Dernick asked, well, if they're ghosts, then what good does it do to eat people? And then Mr. Wolf just started laughing or something like that. It was all a big joke. Maybe Dernick asked, or it was probably actually Faldor that asked. Something like that. But yeah, so the haunted Maragor has gone back as far as early Pawn of Prophecy. Alright, so, for some obscure reason, he chose not to. Patiently, he began to sort through the notions and ideas surrounding that decision. Oh, look at that. Self-examination. Trying to isolate the single thought which he knew must lie behind the choice not to speak. In his search, he touched that quiet corner where the other mind stayed. He could almost sense its sardonic amusement. Haven't heard from that for a little bit. Well, he said silently to it, I see that you're finally awake, the other mind said to him. No, Garion corrected, rather meticulously. Actually, a part of me is asleep, I think. That was the part that kept getting in the way. We can talk now. We have some things to discuss. Ah. Who are you? Garion asked, absently following Aunt Pole's instructions to get back on his horse. I don't actually have a name. You're separate from me, though, aren't you? I mean, you're not just another part of me, are you? No, the voice replied. "We're quite separate." The horses were moving at a walk now, following Aunt Pole and Mr. Wolf across the meadow. "What do you want?" Garion asked. "I need to make things come out the way they're supposed to. I've been doing that for a very long time now." "We're learning things." Garion considered that. Around him, the wailing grew louder. "Edgar Perez! Got s'mores? Oh, lucky you. Did you roast them on a campfire?" Speaking of s'mores, just watched Ghostbusters Afterlife last night. It was quite good. I enjoyed it a lot. Sharkies are jealous for s'mores. Everybody wants s'mores. I want s'mores. It's been a while. Pretty much only have s'mores when I go camping. I don't try to muck around and come up with a way to make them without a campfire. Edgar, we are learning about the silent voice that's been inside Garion's mind for as long as he can remember, and learning that it is, in fact, separate from Garion. So, I need to make things come out the way they're supposed to. I've been doing that for a very long time now. Garion considered that. Around him, the wailing grew louder, and the chorus of moans and shrieks became more distinct. Filmy, half-formed tatters of shape began to appear, floating across the grass toward the horses. "I'm going to go mad, aren't I?" he asked, somewhat regretfully. "I'm not asleep like the others are, and the ghosts will drive me mad, won't they?" "I doubt it," the voice answered. "You'll see some things you'd probably rather not see, but I don't think it will destroy your mind. You might even learn some things about yourself that will be useful later on." So, on that note, just a little bit of a content warning. There may be some graphic imagery coming up. Just to warn anybody involved, things might be a little gruesome. "You're very old, aren't you?" Garion asked as the thought occurred to him. "That term doesn't have any meaning in my case." "Older than my grandfather?" Garion persisted. "I knew him when he was a child. It might make you feel better to know that he was even more stubborn than you are. It took me a very long time to get him started in the direction he was supposed to go." "Did you do it from inside his mind?" "Naturally." Garion noted that his horse was walking obliviously through one of the filmy images that was taking shape in front of him. "Then he knows you, doesn't he? If you were in his mind, I mean." "He didn't know I was there." "I've always known you were there." "You're different. That's what we need to talk about." "I doubt it. PTSD will be good for you." The voice is an 80-year-old. I think the thing is that Garion won't like seeing these things, but his emotions are shut off, so hopefully he won't suffer from them, is the idea. The bit about him learning something about himself, though, I don't know what that's about. I don't remember that being a thing. Rather suddenly, a woman's head appeared in the air directly in front of Garion's face. The eyes were bulging, and the mouth was agape in a soundless scream. The ragged, hacked-off stump of its neck streamed blood that seemed to dribble off into nowhere. "Kiss me!" it croaked at him. Garion closed his eyes as his face passed through the head. "You see?" the voice pointed out conversationally. "It's not as bad as you thought it was going to be." "In what way am I different?" Garion wanted to know. "Something needs to be done, and you're the one who's going to do it. All the others have just been in preparation for you." "What exactly is it that I have to do?" What is it exactly that I have to do? I mixed it around a little. "You'll know when the time comes. If you find out too soon, it might frighten you." The voice took on a somewhat wry note. "You're difficult enough to manage without additional complications." Eldritch Horror appears. "Huh," thinks Garion. Yeah. "Why are we talking about it then?" "You need to know why you have to do it. That might help you when the time comes." "All right," Garion agreed. Nice, Sharkies. Nice. All right, everybody ready for some exposition? A very long time ago, something happened that wasn't supposed to happen, the voice in his mind began. The universe came into existence for a reason, and it was moving toward that purpose smoothly. Everything was happening the way it was supposed to happen, but then something went wrong. It wasn't really a very big thing, but it just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Or perhaps in the wrong place at the wrong time might be a better way to put it. Anyway, it changed the direction of events. Can you understand that? "I think so," Garion replied, frowning with the effort. "Is it like when you throw a rock at something, but it bounces off something else instead and goes where you don't want it to go? Like the time Dorune threw that rock at the crow, and it hit a tree limb and bounced off and broke Faldor's window instead." Haven't heard about Dorune for a while. "That's exactly it," the voice congratulated him. "Up to that point, there had always been only one possibility, the original one. Now there were suddenly two. Let's take it one step further. If Dorune, or you, had thrown another rock very quickly and hit the first rock before it got to Faldor's window, it's possible that the first rock might have been knocked back to hit the crow instead of the window." "Maybe," Garion conceded doubtfully. "Dorune wasn't really that good at throwing rocks." "I'm much better at it than Dorune," the voice told him. "That's exactly it," said the voice. "It's all Dorune's fault. A very long time ago, Dorune broke a window." "I'm much better at it than Dorune," the voice told him. "That's the whole reason I came into existence in the first place. In a very special way, you are the rock that I've thrown. If you hit the other rock just right, you'll turn it and make it go where it was originally intended to go. And if I don't, Faldor's window gets broken." The figure of a naked woman with her arms chopped off and a sword thrust through her body was suddenly in front of Garion. She shrieked and moaned at him, and the stumps of her arms spurted blood directly into his face. Garion reached up to wipe off the blood, but his face was dry. Unconcerned, his horse walked through the gibbering ghost. "We have to get things back on the right course," the voice went on. "This certain thing you have to do is the key to the whole business. For a long time, what was supposed to happen and what was actually happening went off in different directions. Now they're starting to converge again. The point where they meet is the point where you'll have to act. If you succeed, things will be all right again. If you don't, everything will keep going wrong, and the purpose for which the universe came into existence will fail." "How long ago was it when this started?" "Before the world was made, even before the gods." "Will I succeed?" Garion asked. "I don't know," the voice replied. "I know what's supposed to happen, not what will. There's something else you need to know, too. When this mistake occurred, it set off two separate lines of possibility. And a line of possibility has a kind of purpose. To have a purpose, there has to be an awareness of that purpose. To put it rather simply, that's what I am, the awareness of the original purpose of the universe. Only, now there's another one, too, isn't there?" Garion suggested. "Another awareness, I mean. One connected with the other set of possibilities?" "You're even brighter than I thought." "And wouldn't it want things to keep going wrong?" "I'm afraid so. Now we come to the important part. The spot in time where all this is going to be decided, one way or another, is getting very close, and you've got to be ready." "Why me?" Garion asked, brushing away a disconnected hand that appeared to be trying to clutch at his throat. "Can't somebody else do it?" "No," the voice told him. "That's not the way it works. The universe has been waiting for you for more millions of years than you could even imagine. You've been hurtling toward this event since before the beginning of time. It's yours alone. You're the only one who can do what needs to be done. And it's the most important thing that will ever happen. Not just in this world, but in all the worlds in all the universe. There are whole races of men on worlds so far away that the light from their suns will never reach this world, and they'll cease to exist if you fail. They'll never know you or thank you, but their entire existence depends on you. The other line of possibility leads to absolute chaos and the ultimate destruction of the universe. But you and I lead to something else." "What?" "If you're successful, you'll live to see it happen." "All right," Garion said. "What do I have to do? Now, I mean." "You have enormous power. It's been given to you so that you can do what you have to do. But you've got to learn how to use it. Belgarath and Polgara are trying to help you learn, so stop fighting with them about it. You've got to be ready when the time comes. And the time is much closer than you might think." You wonder, did Aunt Pole charm the horses too, or are horses just super chill around the undead? I think the horses just can't see them. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I think the horses just cannot see these ghosts. The voice is Garion's special purpose. Nobody's good at everything, but everyone's good at something. Marmo says, anyone who hasn't seen that commercial is going to be very confused by what I just did. Everyone's seen that commercial. Who was I talking to? I was talking to someone in, like, Australia, and they had seen that commercial, it turned out, because it came up in, like, a film class or something like that. I don't remember exactly why, but for some reason it came up in, like, their film class in Australia. I was very surprised because it's a Canadian commercial. It had something to do with the nature of those commercials, like the way they were made or like funded or something was really unusual. I forget the specifics. You were referencing something else when you said special purpose. Yeah, no, the special purpose thing sounds familiar, but I couldn't. There's some old Canadian commercials where that were on like YTV and things like that, I think in like the 90s. And there's like a bunch of kids doing things that they're very, specific things that they're good at, like playing the tuba or collecting bugs or, and it's like, it's from The Jerk. Oh yeah, of course, The Jerk. I love The Jerk. It's so painful to watch sometimes, but it's so great. Classic Steve Martin. But no, there's a line where a kid's like, nobody's good at everything, but everybody's good at something. And then this kid does like a T-Rex noise, like, Arr! Mom, Billy's sawing me in half again. Kid doing a magic show. Edgar Perez finished the book A Game of Thrones, and you're on Clash of Kings. I have read the books for Game of Thrones. I have not watched the series at all, but I have read all the books. They're interesting. I found that there are some things that George R. R. Martin is very good at. Like, I think he paints a scene very well. He describes things well. He paints a picture in your mind well. But there are parts of it that I don't know. I found it got very predictable. He has a pattern to the way that he writes the chapters and the way that he addresses characters. And once you've picked up on this pattern, like, I could very reliably tell who something horrible was going to happen to next about 3 chapters in advance. So that was a problem with those books that I had. But other than that, there are some very interesting things in there. I don't know whether I'll go back to them if he ever actually finishes the series. Anyways. Alright, let me get back to, where were we? The time is much closer than you might think. A decapitated figure stood in the trail, holding its head by the hair with its right hand. As Garion approached, the figure raised the head. The twisted mouth shrieked curses at him. After he had ridden through the ghost, Garion tried to speak to the mind within his mind again, but it seemed to be gone for the moment. Well, we got what we're gonna. Learned a lot there, though. They rode slowly past the tumbled stones of a ruined farmstead. Ghosts clustered thickly at the stones, beckoning and calling seductively. A disproportionate number seemed to be women, Aunt Pole observed calmly to Mr. Wolf. "It was a peculiarity of the race," Wolf replied. 8 out of 9 births were female. It made certain adjustments necessary in the customary relationships between men and women. "I imagine you found that entertaining," she said dryly.
The Marags didn't look at things precisely the way other races do. Marriage never gained much status among them. They were quite liberal about certain things.
Oh, is that the term for it?
Try not to be so narrow-minded, Paul. The society functioned. That's what counts.
There's a bit more to it than that, Father, she said. What about their cannibalism?
That was a mistake. Somebody misinterpreted a passage in one of their sacred texts, that's all. They did it out of a sense of religious obligation, not out of appetite. On the whole, I rather liked the Marags. They were generous, friendly, and very honest with each other. They enjoyed life. If it hadn't been for the gold here, they'd probably have worked out their little aberration.
Is the author trying to reference sirens, or is it just this is a male author writing sexy women? I mean, none of them are particularly sexy. It says they're calling out seductively, but for the most part they've all been horribly maimed. Personally, that doesn't do it for me. Mrs. says, my first thought was that there were more female ghosts because it was such a violent tragedy that more women were murdered. Well, there's the explanation. Literally, it's just 8 out of 9 of them were female. Garion had forgotten about the gold. As they crossed a small stream, he looked down into the sparkling water and saw the butter-yellow flecks glittering among the pebbles on the bottom. A naked ghost suddenly appeared before him. "Don't you think I'm beautiful?" she leered. Then she took hold of the sides of the great slash that ran up her abdomen, pulled it open, and spilled out her entrails in a pile on the bank of the stream. See, I don't know, that doesn't particularly... Mrs. was typing typing for me on that one. What I actually said was, or was the author trying to be like, women's always be seductive? No, my thought is these are the ghosts of slain women that are trying to, basically get revenge. They're trying to make people go crazy, and that's just how they're doing it. Garion gagged and clenched his teeth together. "Don't think about the gold," the voice in his mind said sharply. "The ghosts come at you through your greed. If you think about gold, you'll go mad." Interesting tactic. They rode on, and Garion tried to push the thought of gold out of his mind. Mr. Wolf, however, continued to talk about it.
"That's always been the problem with gold. It seems to attract the worst kind of people. The Tolnedrans in this case."
"They were trying to stamp out cannibalism, Father," Aunt Pole replied. "That's a custom most people find repugnant." I know I do.
"I wonder how serious they'd have been about it if all that gold hadn't been lying on the bed of every stream in Maragor."
Aunt Pole averted her eyes from the ghost of a child impaled on a Tolnedran spear. "And now no one has the gold," she said. "Mara saw to that."
"Yes,"
Wolf agreed, lifting his face to listen to the dreadful wail that seemed to come from everywhere. He winced at a particularly shrill note in the wailing.
"I wish he wouldn't scream so loud."
Okay, so Mara is a guy. Is a god, but that confirms it then. I was kind of wondering about that one because I couldn't remember, but it does seem like all of the gods are referred to in the masculine. I don't care for that. That seems unnecessary, but... Farmo says, I think last time they confirmed that. I couldn't remember. But yes, you're probably right, because we definitely talked about it before. They passed the ruins. You remember being surprised. They passed the ruins of what appeared to have been a temple. The white stones were tumbled, and grass grew up among them. A broad tree standing nearby was festooned with hanging bodies, twisting and swinging on their ropes. "Let us down," the bodies murmured. "Let us down." "Father," Aunt Pole said sharply, pointing at the meadow beyond the fallen temple. "Over there! Those people are real!" A procession of robed and hooded figures moved slowly through the meadow, chanting in unison to the sound of a mournfully tolling bell supported on a heavy pole they carried on their shoulders.
"The monks of Mar Terin," Wolf said. "Tolnidra's conscience. They aren't anything to worry about."
One of the hooded figures looked up and saw them. "Go back!" he shouted. He broke away from the others and ran toward them, recoiling often from things Garion could not see. "Go back!" he cried again. "Save yourselves! You approach the very center of the horror. Mar Amon lies just beyond that hill. Mara himself rages through its haunted streets." And that's the end of chapter 5. It's just past 7:45. We're on page 59 now. The next chapter goes from 59 to 69, so 10 pages. We just went from, 52? So what do you think? Should we keep going? It's not that late. We haven't been at it for more than half an hour of actual reading. Sharky say, last time I read the words "go back," it was from Frodo. I really do need to go and read The Lord of the Rings myself again at some point. I don't know if it's going to be on the stream or not, but I do need to do it one way or another. Sharkies are in for it? Alright. Chapters 5 and 6. Alright, chapter 6. It's interesting, them running into the monks of Mar Terin here in Maragor. Maragor. That's, kind of expected to be nothing but ghosts. And apparently so did Aunt Pole. Also interesting that Mar Terin is in Tolnidra, right? Mr. Wolf says it's the conscience of Tolnidra, but it seems to follow the naming scheme of Maragor, right? Because Mar Terin, Mar Emon, things like that. Man alive, there are men alive in here. This country is nothing but ghosts. Ghosts in Venice instead of sharks. Nice. Alright, chapter 6. The procession of monks moved on, the sound of their chanting and slowly tolling bell growing fainter as they crossed the meadow. Mr. Wolf seemed deep in thought, the fingers of his good hand stroking his beard. Reminder that one of his arms is still broken. Finally, he sighed rather wryly.
"I suppose we might as well deal with him here and now, Pole. He'll just follow us if we don't."
"You're wasting your time, Father," Aunt Pole replied. "There's no way to reason with him. We've tried before."
"You're probably right," he agreed. "But we should try, at least. Aldor would be disappointed if we didn't. Maybe, when he finds out what's happening, He'll come around to the point where we can at least talk to him."
A piercing wail echoed across the sunny meadow, and Mr. Wolf made a sour face.
"You'd think he'd have shrieked himself out by now. All right, let's go to Mar-Emon."
He turned his horse toward the hill the wild-eyed monk had pointed out to them. A maimed ghost gibbered at him from the air in front of his face.
"Oh, stop that,"
he said irritably. With a startled flicker, the ghost disappeared. Okay, let's go talk to Uncle Cranky God. Farmo says, Mara, God King of Angst. Maybe just God of Angst. So far, I think Torak is the only one who claims the title Cal. There had perhaps been a road leading over the hill at some time in the past. The faint track of it was dimly visible through the grass, but the 32 centuries which had passed since the last living foot had touched its surface, 32 centuries, had all but erased it. They wound to the top of the hill and looked down into the ruins of Mar-Emon. Garion, still detached and unmoved, perceived and deduced things about the city he would not have otherwise noted. Though the destruction had been nearly total, the shape of the city was clearly evident. The street, for there was only one, was laid out in a spiral, winding in toward a broad, circular plaza in the precise center of the ruins. With a peculiar flash of insight, Garion became immediately convinced that the city had been designed by a woman. Men's minds ran to straight lines, but women thought more in terms of circles. What does everyone think about that statement? That's one that's always kind of stuck with me as an odd thing to say. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought. Sharky say Mar-Emon is a ruined IKEA, only one direction through. Farmo says reminds of Pompeii. Was Pompeii a spiral? Is Mar-Emon possibly based on Pompeii? I don't really know anything about the layout of Pompeii. No, just the ruined city. You can still see the shape of Sharky say simplistic, like the idea that men are waffles and women are spaghetti. What? Well, yeah, simplistic, sure. But just the idea men think in straight lines, women think in circles. I don't know. It's an odd... It's odd. I don't know. Not to say at all it was a book title or something, I see. It's not, I definitely don't think that, I'm not saying I agree with this thought or disagree with it or anything. It's just a strange, I don't know. Anyways, I don't think it'll ever come up again. With Aunt Pole and Mr. Wolf in the lead, and the rest following in wooden-faced unconsciousness, they started down the hill to the city. Garion rode at the rear, trying to ignore the ghosts rising from the earth to confront him with their nudity and their hideous maiming. The wailing sound which they had heard from the moment they had entered Maragor grew louder. More distinct. The wail had sometimes seemed to be a chorus, confused and distorted by echoes. But now Garion realized that it was one single mighty voice, filled with a grief so vast that it reverberated through all the kingdom. As they approached the city, a terrible wind seemed to come up, deadly, chill, and filled with an overpowering charnel house stench. As Garion reached automatically to draw his cloak tighter about him, he saw that the cloak did not in any way react to that wind, and that the tall grass through which they rode did not bend before it. He considered it, turning it over in his mind as he tried to close his nostrils to the putrid stench of decay and corruption carried on that ghostly wind. If the wind did not move the grass, it could not be a real wind. Furthermore, if the horses could not hear the wails, they could not be real wails either. He grew colder and he shivered, even as he told himself that the chill, like the wind and the grief-laden howling, was spiritual rather than real. Although Mar Ammon, when he had first glimpsed it from the top of the hill, had appeared to be in total ruin, when they entered the city, Garion was startled to see the substantial walls of houses and public buildings surrounding him. And, somewhere not far away, he seemed to hear the sound of laughing children. There was also the sound of singing off in the distance. "Why does he keep doing this?" Aunt Pole asked sadly. "It doesn't do any good."
"It's all he has, Pole,"
Mr. Wolf replied. "It always ends the same way, though."
"I know, but for a little while, it helps him forget."
"There are things we'd all like to forget, Father. This isn't the way to do it." Wolf looked admiringly at the substantial-seeming houses around them.
"It's very good, you know."
"Naturally," she said. "He's a god, after all. But it's still not good for him." It was not until Barak's horse inadvertently stepped directly through one of the walls, disappearing through the solid-looking stone and then re-emerging several yards farther down the street, that Garion understood what his aunt and grandfather were talking about. The walls, the buildings, the whole city was an illusion, a memory. The chill wind with its stink of corruption seemed to grow stronger, and carried with it now the added reek of smoke. Though Garion could still see the sunlight shining brightly on the grass, it seemed, for some reason, that it was growing noticeably darker. The laughter of children and the distant singing faded. Instead, Garion heard screams. A Tolnedran legionnaire, in burnished breastplate and plumed helmet, as solid-looking as the walls around them, came running down the long curve of the street. His sword dripped blood, his face was fixed in a hideous grin, and his eyes were wild. Hacked and mutilated bodies sprawled in the street now, and there was blood everywhere. The wailing climbed into a piercing shriek as the illusion moved on toward its dreadful climax. The spiral street opened at last into the broad circular plaza at the center of Mar Ammon. The icy wind seemed to howl through the burning city, and the dreadful sound of swords chopping through flesh and bone seemed to fill Garion's entire mind. The air grew even darker. The stones of the plaza were thick with the illusory memory of uncounted scores of Marag dead, lying beneath rolling clouds of dense smoke. But what stood in the center of the plaza was not an illusion, nor even a ghost. The figure towered and seemed to shimmer with a terrible presence, a reality that was in no way dependent upon the mind of the observer for its existence. In its arms, it held the body of a slaughtered child that seemed somehow to be the sum and total of all the dead of haunted Maragor. Its face, lifted in anguish above the body of that dead child, was ravaged by an expression of inhuman grief. The figure wailed, and Garion, even in the half-somnolent state that protected his sanity, somnolent, there's one you don't see often, felt the hair on the back of his neck trying to rise in horror. Mr. Wolf grimaced and climbed down from his saddle. Carefully stepping over the illusions of bodies littering the plaza. Interesting detail, stepping over the illusions. He approached the enormous presence.
"Lord Mara,"
he said, respectfully bowing to the figure. Mara howled.
"Lord Mara,"
Wolf said again.
"I would not lightly intrude myself upon thy grief, but I must speak with thee."
Mr. Wolf slipping into the these and thous. The dreadful face contorted, and great tears streamed down the god's cheeks. Wordlessly, Mara held out the body of the child, and lifted his face, and wailed.
"Lord Mara!"
Wolf tried once again, more insistent this time. Mara closed his eyes and bowed his head, sobbing over the body of the child. "It's useless, Father," Aunt Pole told the old man. "When he's like this, you can't reach him." "Leave me, Belgarath," Mara said, still weeping. His huge voice rolled and throbbed in Garion's mind. "Leave me to my grief."
"Lord Mara, the day of the fulfillment of the prophecy is at hand,"
Wolf told him. "What is that to me?" Mara sobbed, clutching the body of the child closer. "Will the prophecy restore my slaughtered children to me? I am beyond its reach. Leave me alone."
"The fate of the world hinges upon the outcome of events which will happen very soon, Lord Mara," Mr. Wolf insisted. "The kingdoms of East and West are girding for the last war, and Torak One-Eye, thy accursed brother, stirs in his slumber and will soon awaken."
"Let him awaken," Mara replied, and bowed down over the body in his arms as a storm of fresh weeping swept him. "Wilt thou then submit to his dominion, Lord Mara?" Aunt Pole asked him. "I am beyond his dominion, Polgara," Mara answered. "I will not leave this land of my murdered children, and no man or god will intrude upon me here. Let Torak have the world if he wants it." "We might as well leave, Father," Aunt Pole said. "Nothing's going to move him."
"Lord Mara,"
Mr. Wolf said to the weeping god,
"we have brought before thee the instruments of prophecy. Wilt thou bless them before we go?"
"I have no blessings, Belgarath," Mara replied. "Only curses for the savage children of Nedra. Take these strangers and go." "Lord Mara," Aunt Pole said firmly, "a part is reserved for thee in the working out of the prophecy. The iron destiny which compels us all compels thee as well. each must play that part laid out for him from the beginning of days. For, in the day that the prophecy is turned aside from its terrible course, the world will be unmade.
Let it be unmade, Mara groaned. It holds no more joy for me, so let it perish. My grief is eternal, and I will not abandon it, though the cost be the unmaking of all that has been made. Take these children of the prophecy and depart.
Mr. Wolf bowed with resignation, turned, and came back toward the rest of them. His expression registered a certain hopeless disgust.
Wait!
Mara roared suddenly. The images of the city and its dead wavered and shimmered away.
What is this?
The god demanded. Mr. Wolf turned quickly.
What hast thou done, Belgarath?
Mara accused, suddenly towering into immensity.
And thou, Polgara, is my grief now an amusement for thee? Wilt thou cast my sorrow into my teeth?
My lord? Aunt Pole seemed taken aback by the god's sudden fury.
Monstrous! Mara roared. Monstrous!
His huge face convulsed with rage. In terrible anger, he strode toward them and then stopped directly in front of the horse of Princess Sinedra.
I will rend thy flesh, he shrieked at her. I will fill thy brain with the worms of madness, daughter of Nedra. I will sink thee in torment and horror for all the days of thy life.
Leave her alone, Aunt Pole said sharply.
Nay, Polgara, he raged. Upon her will fall the brunt of my wrath.
His dreadful, clutching fingers reached out toward the uncomprehending princess. But she stared blankly through him, unflinching and unaware. The god hissed with frustration and whirled to confront Mr. Wolf.
Tricked! He howled. Her mind is asleep. They're all asleep, Lord Mara, Wolf replied. Threats and horrors don't mean anything to them. Shriek and howl until the sky falls down. She cannot hear thee. I will punish thee for this, Belgarath, Mara snarled, and Polgara as well. You will all taste pain and terror for this arrogant despite of me. I will wring the sleep from the minds of these intruders, and they will know the agony and madness I will visit upon them all.
He swelled suddenly into vastness.
That's enough, Mara. Stop.
The voice was Garion's, but Garion knew that it was not he who spoke. I should have read that slightly differently then. The spirit of Mara turned on him, raising his vast arm to strike, but Garion felt himself slide from his horse to approach the vast threatening figure. Your vengeance stops here, Mara, the voice coming from Garion's mouth said. The girl is bound to my purpose. You will not touch her. Garion realized with a certain alarm that he had been placed between the raging god and the sleeping princess. Move out of my way, boy, lest I slay thee, Mara threatened. Use your mind, Mara, the voice told him, if you haven't howled it empty by now. You know who I am. I will have her, Mara howled. I will give her a multitude of lives, and tear each one from her quivering flesh. No, the voice replied, you won't. The god, Mara, drew himself up again, raising his dreadful arms. But at the same time, his eyes were probing. And more than his eyes. Garion, once again, felt a vast touch on his mind, as he had in Queen Selmistra's throne room when the spirit of Issa had touched him. A dreadful recognition began to dawn in Mara's weeping eyes. His raised arms fell. "Give her to me," he pleaded. "Take the others and go, but give the Tolnedron to me. I beg it of thee." "No." What happened then was not sorcery. Garion knew it instantly. The noise was not there. It's not there, I'm sorry everyone. You can't type it out, it's not happening. The noise was not there, nor that strange rushing surge that always accompanied sorcery. Instead, there seemed to be a terrible pressure as the full force of Mara's mind was directed crushingly at him. Then the mind within his mind responded. The power was so vast that the world itself was not large enough to contain it. It did not strike back at Mara, for that dreadful collision would have shattered the world. But it stood, rather, calmly unmoved and immovable against the raging torrent of Mara's fury. For a fleeting moment, Garion shared the awareness of the mind within his mind, and he shuddered back from its immensity. In that instant, he saw the birth of uncounted suns, swirling in vast spirals against the velvet blackness of the void, their birth and gathering into galaxies, and ponderously turning nebulae, encompassing but a moment. And beyond that, he looked full in the face of time itself, seeing its beginning and its ending in one awful glimpse. Mara fell back. "I must submit," he said hoarsely, and he bowed to Garion, his ravaged face strangely humble. He turned away and buried his face in his hands, weeping uncontrollably. "Your grief will end, Mara," the voice said gently. "One day you will find joy again." "Never," the gods sobbed. "My grief will last forever." "Forever is a very long time, Mara," the voice replied, "and only I can see to the end of it." The weeping god did not answer, but moved away from them, and the sound of his wailing echoed again through the ruins of Maramon. Mr. Wolf and Aunt Pole were both staring at Garion with stunned faces. When the old man spoke, his voice was awed.
"Is it possible?"
"Aren't you the one who keeps saying that anything is possible, Belgarath?" "We didn't know you could intervene directly," Aunt Pole said. "I nudge things a bit from time to time, make a few suggestions. If you think back carefully, you might even remember some of them." "Is the boy aware of any of this?" she asked. "Of course. We had a little talk about it." "How much did you tell him?" "As much as he could understand. Don't worry, Polgara. I'm not going to hurt him. He realizes how important all this is now. He knows that he needs to prepare himself, and that he doesn't have a great deal of time for it. I think you'd better leave here now. The Tolnedron girl's presence is causing Mara a great deal of pain." Aunt Pole looked as if she wanted to say more, but she glanced once at the shadowy figure of the god weeping not far away, and nodded. She turned to her horse and led the way out of the ruins. Mr. Wolf fell in beside Garion after they had remounted to follow her.
"Perhaps we could talk as we ride along," he suggested. "I have a great many questions."
He's gone, grandfather, Garion told him.
Oh,
Wolf answered, with obvious disappointment. It was nearing sundown by then, and they stopped for the night in a grove about a mile away from Mar Amon. Since they had left the ruins, they had seen no more of the maimed ghosts. After the others had been fed and sent to their blankets, Aunt Pole, Garion, and Mr. Wolf sat around their small fire. Since the presence in his mind had left him, following the meeting with Mara, Garion had felt himself sinking deeper toward sleep. But you could chat with me, grandfather.
Yeah, I guess. No thanks. Bye.
Garion had felt himself sinking deeper toward sleep. All emotion was totally gone now, and he seemed no longer able to think independently.
Can we talk to the other one?
Mr. Wolf asked, hopefully. He isn't there right now, Garion replied.
Then he isn't always with you?
Not always. Sometimes he goes away for months, sometimes even longer. He's been there for quite a long while this time, ever since Asherak burned up.
Where exactly is he when he's with you?
The old man asked curiously. In here, Garion tapped his head. Have you been awake ever since we entered Maragor? Not exactly awake, Garion answered. Part of me was asleep. You could see the ghosts? Yes. But they didn't frighten you? No. Some of them surprised me, and one of them made me sick. Wolf looked up quickly.
It wouldn't make you sick now, though, would it?
No, I don't think so. Right at first, I could still feel things like that a little bit. Now I can't. Wolf looked thoughtfully at the fire, as if looking for a way to phrase his next question.
What did the other one in your head say to you when you talked together?
He told me that something had happened a long time ago that wasn't supposed to happen, and that I was supposed to fix it. Wolf laughed shortly.
That's a succinct way of putting it, he observed. Did he say anything about how it was going to turn out?
He doesn't know. Wolf sighed.
I'd hoped that maybe we'd picked up an advantage somewhere, but I guess not. It looks like both prophecies are still equally valid.
It's an interesting concept. Competing, conflicting prophecies. I feel like I don't see that very often. Usually it's, here's the prophecy. Oh, it turned out in a way you didn't expect because you misinterpreted it. But this one is like, you've got a prophecy and another one, and only one of them can be correct. But until we find out which one, each one is equally likely. And you've got to work to make sure that the one you want to win wins. Aunt Pole was looking steadily at Garion. Do you think you'll be able to remember any of this when you wake up again? She asked. I think so. All right, then. Listen carefully. There are two prophecies, both leading toward the same event. The Grolims and the rest of the Angaraks are following one. We're following the other. The event turns out differently at the end of each prophecy. I see. Nothing in either prophecy excludes anything that will happen in the other until they meet in that event, she continued. The course of everything that follows will be decided by how that event turns out. One prophecy will succeed, the other will fail. Everything that has happened
and will happen comes together at that point and becomes one. The mistake will be erased, and the universe will go in one direction or the other, as if that were the direction it had been going from its very beginning. The only real difference is that something that's very important will never happen if we fail. Garion nodded, feeling suddenly very tired. Belden calls it the theory... Nope, wrong voice. Let me go back. Belden calls it the theory of convergent destinies, Mr. Wolf said. Two equally possible possibilities. Belden can be very pompous sometimes. It's not an uncommon failing, Father, Aunt Pole told him. I think I'd like to sleep now, Garion said. Wolf and Aunt Pole exchanged a quick glance. All right, Aunt Pole said. She rose and took him by the arm and led him to his blankets. After she had covered him, drawing the blankets up snugly, she laid one cool hand on his forehead. Sleep, my Belgarian, she murmured, and he did that. That's the end of Chapter 6, and also the end of Part 1. Part 2 is going to be The Vale of Aldor. We've heard a little bit about the Vale. That's where we're going next. Well, that's where they've been headed this whole time. Which of course means new map. Which I'll show more next time, on Friday. The map is actually titled The Vale of Aldor and Surrounds. The Vale of Aldor is not very big compared to the other countries. It's a cute little map, though. So, yours is the second artist again. I believe mine is still going to be the first, because it looks... Yeah, Shelley Shapiro is mine, 86. Mine's labeled 86. Yours doesn't say and surrounds? Ah. Does yours have a date on it? Because, yeah. I don't know if I've noticed a date on the other maps. Apparently Shelley... Oh no, the big map, the world map, was 83. Shelley Shapiro, 83. So this one's 3 years later. And I'm guessing that the map of Maragor is probably 86 as well. I think so, though it's hard to tell. The print's a little squished. No date. It's still a mystery to me. I wonder why the maps changed artists. Like, why there are the same maps by different artists. I briefly tried looking it up and didn't find anything. Which is not surprising. Like, who's gonna... Like, how would that information have found its way online? But I am curious. So, that was a lot during those 2 chapters. Especially during the... Well, no, really during both of them, because you had the whole conversation between Garion and the voice that doesn't really have a name. A lot of explanation, especially since all other facts point to that we have the same edition. Yeah, that part's especially odd. Apparently the cover of mine was printed in USA. But the interior says printed in Canada. First edition, June 1983. 9th printing, November 1985. ISBN 0345 33545 7. Same ISBN,
Same ISBN, but different contents? What's going on here? Something's not right. Same ISBN, but different maps. And now I'm way out of focus. Very, very blurry. Well, that was fun. A little gruesome at parts. Hopefully nobody was too disturbed by that. And a little bit of like, I don't know. It's hard to say whether focus pretty quickly, but then unfocus. By all library logic, they should be exactly the same. That's really odd. Same ISBN, different maps. And it's interesting that, like, the page counts and everything are still the same. Like, everything else seems to line up. It's just that the maps are different. So we learned even more about that voice in Garion's mind, and it seems to be becoming even more important than we knew previously. Barmos thinks the book gore is enough steps removed to usually not be too disturbing. Maybe one is a misprint? If that were the case, I would guess it's mine, because mine does say, still, in the beginning, additional maps by Chris Barbieri. So mine mentions Chris, but then the maps aren't actually by Chris. And I don't think any of them are. Because if I read ahead, which don't do that, don't do what I'm doing, but if I look ahead, yep, that map's Chris. Or not Chris, Shelley. Yeah, all my maps are Shelley. So I would guess that mine, if one's a misprint, then that's mine. It was intended to have the new maps, but accidentally didn't. Yeah. Because, again, like, there is credit for Chris Barbieri, and then there's no actual content by Chris Barbieri, so he's getting credited for something that's not his. So I'm guessing that, yeah, that the intention was to switch over to those new maps for for whatever reason it could be, and then it was printed without them. Like, why would you switch them? Like, are the Shelley Shapiro maps not accurate enough, or just a style change? Like, I don't know. I like the older maps. I don't know. Sharky was glad for this one that the kids were in the other room for the description of the gore. Yeah, it was more gruesome than we've run into. And, like, I mean, the thought behind it is that, okay, well, these are ghosts, right? And they're not having an effect on Garion, so you're kind of getting a description in sort of like a clinical way. But it's still, yeah, it's a little heavy. Farmer says, like, something that happens to you is nothing removed, something happening in front of you is 1 removed, and then the books are like 5 removed, and having someone read it to you would even maybe be another. I get what you're saying. And his not being affected to it added another layer of removed, yeah. So I was just looking through the front of the book, noticed it had an excerpt of the chapter we just read. Oh, yeah, chapter excerpts are odd, aren't they? Yeah, mine's got it too. The Weeping God, right at the very first page. So, the voice in Garion's mind is some sort of power that has been around since before the gods existed, the gods of this world. And also a confirmation that there are other worlds out there with other races of people and things like that, you know, will never know that you existed, but you need to save them. It's an odd... Hey, I'm back in focus. Just something, the way I was leaning forward there did it. And that the voice in his head is respected, feared by some gods. Yeah, well, apparently is more powerful than the gods. in that Mara was trying to, throw all of his might against this voice, and it just sort of sat there and took it. The whole, Batman versus Superman punch to the jaw, just no movement. Farmhouse finds gods are usually depicted as being like the archetype of some kind of personality or something, so it makes sense for a god to get stuck into grieving forever. Yeah, frequently, not in every case, but frequently it's just sort of it feels like gods have a single personality that they cannot change, a single sort of core who they are. Gods don't generally go through character development. It's the whole, not that the MCU is necessarily anything to go off of, but the whole, you can always count on Loki to betray you kind of thing. The scorpion and the frog, it's my nature. But not completely omniscient, since it knows what could happen or is supposed to happen, but not for sure what will be. Yeah, it's definitely sort of you reach the part with the Mirror of Galadriel. Ooh. I'm sure you've seen that thing about the gifts that she gives to the Fellowship of the Ring, and Gimli in particular. I love that little bit of backstory that you wouldn't get without Silmarillion knowledge. Yeah, the power... Well, it's definitely the power exists for this one purpose, and there's a conflicting power, and it can see up to this point. And it can't see if it's going to go this way or this way, right? But it seems to be able to see to that. And I think maybe it's possible that it can see both this way and this way, but it can't see which one is going to exist and which one isn't. So, it's possible that it can see both directions, but it just can't see which one is actually going to happen. That was a lovely bit of extra knowledge. Yeah, that bit, about Galadriel's hairs, is just such a cute little, I don't know. I don't really remember much about the Mirror of Galadriel, though. It's been a while. Was that even in the films? Because it's been a long time since I've read the books. I really do need to put those on, my tablet or something. Not my tablet, my Kindle, and just read them that way. Just pouring... Oh, yes. Right. Well, that definitely does have some overlap, doesn't it? That's kind of funny. Definitely some similarities. These chapters reminded you a lot of Loki. Did they? I suppose I can see that. I didn't connect that idea, but the timeline. Yeah, that's fair. Less, this one is not exactly the same as that. I can see the similarity, but this is not implying separate timelines. It's just, things could end one of two ways. It's sort of the, you're playing a game that's got two endings, but the characters know that it has two endings, and they're doing everything they can to get the good end and not the bad end. Less bureaucratic and more just one guy. Two. We just haven't met the other one. Yeah. Lots of Renegade in Paragon. Maybe. Maybe more like the ending where your party makes it through and the ending where they don't. The voice does say there are other worlds that are at stake. Right, but I picture that they say other worlds in the universe. So it's not that there are other timelines. It's that literally if you fly in space, you jump in a spaceship and you travel through the solar systems, there are other worlds out there with other people. Because if this event goes the wrong way, the universe gets unmade. So there's still only a single timeline. There's just two people, or two powers, whatever, working to make it go one way or the other. A very Doctor Who style of stakes. The whole multiverses versus timeline stuff. It's not even either of those, because the timeline things were still like alternate realities. Multiverse stuff is actual other universes. This is just a single universe, right? Like we live in a single universe and we could fly out to Mars. If there was another race of people on Mars, that's what the voice was talking about. There are other worlds in this universe. It's just so far away that the light of their suns will never reach this world. So it's, yeah, Doctor Who is definitely without the time travel, but yeah. Been talking about Doctor Who a fair amount recently. I stopped watching Doctor Who quite early into the Matt Smith run. I maybe watched one season of Matt Smith because it just didn't click with me. I watched from Eccleston through David Tennant stuff through to like the first season of Matt Smith, and there was like an episode about like vampires in Venice or something like that. I just couldn't. I don't know, and I didn't like the way that I didn't enjoy Matt Smith's acting. But I do like. I would like to go back and continue or rewatch Doctor Who and try to get through Matt Smith's stuff and get to the Doctors after that. But there's so much. It's so big. There's been so much since then where I'm like, I don't know. That's a lot of time and time investment. You just meant more in general, like they seem similar, but they're not. Well, yeah, unknown. Well, yeah. So I think I'm gonna wrap things up here. I'm gonna go heat up some lasagna leftovers, maybe, or something else. We'll see. And I will be back on Friday to continue into the Vale of Aldor. So look forward to that. I'm looking forward to the Vale of Aldor. Right? We've heard about it a lot, but we really don't know what it's gonna be like. And we've heard about Aldor a lot. It's interesting just the way that Mr. Wolf respects Aldor, which of course he does, but it's sort of the like, I don't want to talk to Mara, you don't want to talk to Mara, but Aldor would be disappointed in us if we didn't, so we're gonna do it. That was an interesting part. This is as much more a fan of the Monster of the Week style stories and likes Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, but the stories have gotten a little too big. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people disappointed with the writers for Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and I think that maybe, who's the, one of the authors, Davies or something, was maybe coming back for the new Doctor? Russell T. Davies, right? I think is returning, and so I think some people are cautiously optimistic that maybe the writing style will get back to something that they enjoy. This Monsters of the Week and more, everything is exploding all the time. I really don't know very much about Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, which I do want to watch hers because, female Doctor. Hey, that's new and exciting. But anyways. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. Yeah. See you all on Friday, hopefully. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the week. And, yeah. Look forward to the Vale of Aldor. Ooh, bye.